Development Corporation. This is April 9th, 2025. We need approval of the minutes for March.
Move it. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Kevin?
All right, so I have our March monitoring report here for our visits between March 1st and March 31st of 2025. We made 7 monthly site visits during this period. We had 1 follow-up visit. We checked residency with 188 workers, just 1 issue of non-compliance for 1 out-of-area resident. There was 1 new MCIDC sign delivered to Jewish Home Moderate Housing Unit. Any questions?
None for Kevin? Thank you, Kevin.
Okay, have a great day. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Greg, we was hoping that your other partner would have been here. He did a good job. Last time.
Yeah, he's the better looking, smarter,
Yeah, he was excellent.
you know,
He stood.
better head of hair.
He stood and gave the report. He
He
didn't
did.
sit.
How enthusiastic was he? I told him, he said, you gotta, he loves the enthusiasm.
He was on it.
Did he follow instructions? He was
He
good?
did what he was supposed to do.
All right, financials through the first 3 months of the year. Again, cash balance is consistent. Again, about 400,000 of that is our operating cash and money market, and about 500,000 or 600,000 represents our loan fund balance that we use to fund the loans. Short-term investments again represents our treasury purchases. Just to recap, we got about 10 different notes that expire generally or mature every 3 months. And, the last one, we're out to October of 2026. And again, as we determine we have more excess cash, we'll look at that. Certainly the market is a little bit crazy on a day-to-day basis right now, so we'll have a little bit more insight into whether we continue with the going out to the end or do something different based on where those rates fluctuate, but more to come on that. The other current assets really represents the microloan grant reimbursements that we submit to the county generally every month, but depending on when we get some of that documentation, that lags a little bit. RLF, we received $16,120 of principal during the month and $3,700 of interest during that month. In terms of the micro loan, we received $25,000 of principal during the month and $5,000 of interest during the month. On a 3-month basis, that principal on those micro loans is about $94,600, and the interest on that portfolio is about $19,982. So all good there. All the other liabilities and are really just generally in line with our budget and expectations. In terms of our income and expenses, again, 504 is lagging a little bit behind budget. I think really that is mainly due to the lack of loan closings, but we do anticipate that kind of kicking up here over the next few months. The bank interest, again, there's 2 variables there: excess cash or excess working capital, and then the rate variable. When we did our budgets back in October, we did anticipate, or for the budget purposes, a little bit rates going down a little bit. They really haven't as much, so that's why you'll see a little bit more of that interest earned compared to what we had budgeted. All good news there. We talked about the interest on the IDC loans in the microloan portfolio, and you can see the microloan grant is the amounts we get reimbursed by the county ahead of budget. Again, that's hard to predict on when those get approved and everything, so that's kind of a timing thing there. But certainly well ahead of our pace last year for the first quarter. Incentive programs represent our rates, and as we're going through some of those changes, those are lagging to what historical has been, and we would probably anticipate that at this point. Economic development, the same, I really think that's more of a timing thing, as programs and opportunities come up for on the board to consider, we'll look at those. And then the general administrative is really just the difference in that to budget. It's more generally because of the micro loan reimbursements that we just haven't quite received yet. We'll anticipate that all kind of evens out as we go throughout the year. But overall, as you can see, our revenue over expenses is very positive, more than what we had budgeted, and quite a bit more than where we were last year. So all good news on the financial front through the first 3 months of the year.
Thank you, Greg.
Any questions for Greg? The executive committee just met. We met with Barb Eganhofer and Andrew Tuttle for retained. And if you recall, last year we granted them $100,000. It was I guess we could call it a pilot. It started last year, and if you recall, it was to try to keep talent in the Rochester area when folks would graduate from universities here. It has to do with, is it the Campus Rock? Yeah.
Yes, Campus Rock is a subsidiary organization housed within the Chamber of Commerce, a nonprofit.
And so they were funded also by our sister board. This year they're asking for the same amount that we gave them last year. And a little earlier today, we had a meeting with them, and they presented the program once again. We got out the gate late last year in June, so they had around 21 participants this year. But the goal this year is to get up to 35 in the second cohort. And one of the main features is to incentivize the folks by staying here is that once they go through the retained program, they'd be incentivized $4,000 to stay here in Rochester, look for work here, and try to remain here. So that was an attempt by us to try to keep our talent here. We talked with them extensively. I possibly should just turn this over to Phil because he asked most of the questions. He had 4 very important questions that was with them. But the executive committee moved the motion to approve the $100,000. I sort of apologize because I really dismissed them. They could have stayed and did this report again, you know? And then I would have had to leave the meeting. But they're gone. They did a pretty good job. This is something that we really want to support in this community. County executive, almost everyone sees this as a outstanding outreach. So there's a motion that we're gonna put on the floor to approve $100,000 to Campus Rock to administer the retained program for 1 year.
I'll make it.
You need a second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. We gotta go into executive session, so we need a motion to do so.
Motion second. I'll move that.
All in favor?
Aye.
for a $20,000 increase on project costs for a previously approved SBA 504 commercial mortgage for the purpose of purchasing a property in the city of Rochester.
I'll move that.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Jeff will abstain.
Okay. SBA audit response.
Yes, thank you, honey. If you'll recall, that MCIDC was audited by the SBA, I think this one was last year. It was in
over the
2024,
summer.
over the summer.
Requested the info and then
They-
they didn't get back to us.
Right, and some corrective action, they requested some information and corrective action. Robin's gonna give you a synopsis of, where we are with that.
Yeah, so just as a reminder, they got back to us in December with their assessment of, based on a sample of 8 loans, and they came back with 4 findings which required corrective action and 1 with a recommendation for an improvement. In January, we brought this to the board's attention with what our, we had, the action from the SBA is within 45 days, you need to get back to them and state, let me tell you exactly what they tell you. In 45 days from the date of this report, the CDC must respond in writing and address each finding, which we did, and that's what we shared with the board in January. And then within 90 days, we have to provide evidence satisfactory to SBA that corrective actions have been implemented. And so that's what we're doing right now to the board. We don't think there's any action that needs to be taken, but what you'll see in the board packet is like the email back and forth that Tony's been having with them, and it's got, like, the first one has the finding, which was, insurance coverage. The corrective action was what we proposed back to them, and then they did a summary, and then the person from the SBA did an assessment, and then under that in red is what our response will be after this meeting, back to the CDC. And we have to kind of credit Allison for taking the lead to get the staff all together. She's like a process person. She can like envision things. I can't envision things at all. So she worked with Tony and everybody. And so what we, 3 of the 4 of these are related to insurance documents, which there's now a process in place that Ashley has a whole spreadsheet and chart, and she knows what loan has insurance and where it's located, and she's like she's got a whole process in place to gather the required insurance documents. And then the 4th one had to do with risk ratings, and Tony's and Craig are all about that right now, and they have a process in place for that. And then the recommendation had to do with real estate use of proceeds, and frankly, I'm not even sure what that means, so.
I assume it's the closing statement.
Yeah.
They wanted the real estate closing statement signed, which usually happens before we're involved, so sometimes we have to document it in another way, either an affidavit or something else.
So what we've said is we've added that to our checklist that
Correct.
the attorneys deal with, and we'll take care of that going forward. So in summary, we were audited, we provided a response in 45 days of what our action will be, and now within 90 days, we're saying this is what we have done. And the corrective action and the process and procedures in place going forward. How's that?
Very good,
This is
thank
all,
you.
the missing insurance and so forth, it's all done.
It's all, yes. Ashley did a great job grabbing it all.
I'm surprised people.
I think did she get all of it, or like made every attempt available to?
Yeah, obviously can't force people, especially on some of the red code loans, to cooperate, but there's a process in place of documenting what we had at closing, and then what the authorization requires, and then follow-up letters, form letters that go out that ask for it on an annual basis, and then follow-ups from there and how to escalate.
How about, like flood insurance, people?
So
Yeah.
where are we at with
A lot of the,
No action is
we do the
needed.
report of the flood searches on our end.
Right.
And they give us, we sign up for the annual updates so that every property would have annual updates. We at Nixon, I don't think have closed one yet that required flood insurance, but understand that that's also
Get back to us.
a issue on an ongoing basis. Yes. and the flood maps will change.
New York State just put in to limit the amount that consumers have to pay. They can take the lowest available, even though it doesn't cover everything.
I got a question. Do we have to do any like Regulation B stuff when we issue like term sheets or like disclosures that we have to provide the client?
Like a
Like-
retail banking sort of
Well, I
disclosures.
mean, it's, I thought we've been for retail consumers, but it's now for everybody, which is a huge pain in my life, but,
Well,
Yeah,
technically, it's the SBA's note,
okay.
so they would have, other stuff in there. And it is quite a packet, that
Disclosures
authorization.
and, New York State requires the MWOB form, which is, no one fills it out, but if they wanted to, they could. I've never had one filled out, but
Yeah, we have, the SBA has a form, a disclosure that makes us disclose like who's representing who and what the fees are, and everyone signs it as part of the SBA loan closing.
So you're talking about spouse guarantees, probably?
no, like if I, use an example, if I issue a term sheet to a corporation, for example, if it's publicly traded, then it's exempt, but anything else, you're supposed to send, if it's got New York State, you're supposed to send a form, which they can fill out to say, is it a minority-owned business, is it a, what the number of employees are. No one, the borrowers don't have to fill it out, and if they don't, you can say, oh, they didn't fill it out, but if you don't send that, then Reg B is saying, hey, you could be discriminating on your lending practices, and I've always argued it's a corporation, it's, not the same as a consumer, like an auto loan or something, but I didn't know if we were governed by that too. But if it's the SBA's, or maybe the bank's doing it, if you think about it, on the front end, so.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they do the permanent and the interim, but yeah, no, we do not have any, similar disclosure on the SBA side.
Okay.
There was some, request for demographic information, before, the most recent changes that have come down. So a lot of that stuff has been removed from forms, and there's new forms out for some of the SBA closing documents.
Yeah, I always thought it'd be better for the state to collect that information when someone files a tax return versus a bank issuing a term sheet.
But the big reg, at least back in my day, which admittedly is a while back now, was that you couldn't ask for the spouse's guarantee, just by a matter of course, right? It used to be in the old days, it was both.
Well, the big rugby part now is the clock. Once you've issued it, and you have to reply to their credit request application within a period of time, or else you could be cited as not.
I always thought the government was exempt from
Right.
reg B.
Yeah, that's my understanding, same with, most of our KYC and everything else.
So I don't know.
They can ask for whatever they want.
Okay. Sorry to put out the rabbit hole there.
But it tells me it's over with.
There's no action needed on that.
No, no action needed on that. Any other business that we have to take care of? Okay. We're looking for, a motion to adjourn then? We can all stay for lunch. It's on the house.
Second.
All in favor?